turn that light switch up, the visual? Yeah. That's it. And we can see it. Okay. So first of all, I want to thank everybody for coming out and deciding to spend a couple hours of your Saturday afternoon hearing about what it is we're going to be talking about today, which is an introduction to Dream Yoga. Now, one of the most common questions that came in on the email was, will we be doing yoga? And the answer is yes, and the answer is no. The real answer is, essentially in the West, we associate yoga with exercise. But really, it comes from a place where it was a religion. It was part of the Hindu tradition, yoga, and it was all-encompassing. It wasn't just doing exercises. Even this word yoga, at its root, means to bind back. In religion, at its root, religare, from the Latin, means to bind back. So, it is yoga in a broader sense. It's not yoga in the standing on your head sense. But we can talk about that a little bit more. So the goal I have for today for you is to have really practical, clear information so you can start at home on your own the process of Dream Yoga, which we'll look at in more depth, but essentially is remembering your dreams, becoming aware that you're dreaming, and waking up within your dreams. A lot of people call this lucid dreaming, but this is what we're going to be talking about is actually a step further than the traditional lucid dreaming. Because essentially, you can imagine something like, lucid dreaming is like we're in a fantasy land, but then we start to control the fantasy. So now we're directing the fantasy. The problem is it's still a fantasy. So the step beyond that is to drop the fantasy and see the reality. This is the difference. This is Dream Yoga goes further than lucid dreaming. Let's not get ahead of ourselves though. So if you're here for the introduction to Dream Yoga, you're in the right spot. This is the organization that I'm a part of. We have this acronym that's clumsy called IGAS, which stands for the International Gnostic Association of Anthropological Studies. The international group is really called IGA, but in Canada we couldn't because there's a grocery store that's called. We had this long one. And what I do is I'm an instructor, and my wife also, and we're the directors of the London branch of this international group. It's a registered nonprofit. It's something we do because we have a passion for it, and it's more large scale than, say, one person's house in London. We have centers in Kitchener, Toronto, Ottawa, tons in Quebec, and then globally also. And the whole point of it is to help people become more personally attached to their own spiritual development. Gnostic, in a sense, maybe you might have heard this word. Have you heard this word Gnostic before? Mm-hmm. It's kind of famous with the idea of Gnostic Gospels and everything. The big difference of what Gnostic really means, well, we know the word probably agnostic. You know this word? Mm-hmm. Agnostic means you can't know anything divine or spiritual, metaphysical, so why bother try? That's agnostic. Gnostic's the opposite. You can know. You don't need an intermediary, you don't need someone to tell you. You can know for yourself spiritual reality. That's what Gnostic means. So this is the premise of the entire school, the entire organization. Also, after this lecture, you can feel free, if you'd like, to sign up for the course that will be starting. So we do maybe twice a year intakes of weekly courses, which will be held on a Monday night or a Wednesday night, depending on people's availability or interest. And it follows a really sort of, it progresses and the classes build on one another. Each class is like a 45-minute talk and like a half-hour meditation, and they build and they build and they build. But there's no hard pitch here. There's no hard sale. Sign up, don't. If you don't, it's fine. You should get enough information from this lecture today that you can start Dream Yoga and start to hopefully have some success with it. So that's just to show where we're going. If you're interested in more information about the course, then you can come see me after. I can take your email and put you on the mailing list. One thing I always like to mention to people also, though it probably doesn't need to be said, is this is not my job. I don't make money doing this. This is all volunteer, just so you know. This is why there's no hard sale for you guys to do. Okay? Come or don't. The door is open. Door for people to come, door for people to leave. It's no problem. So, at its core, the Gnostic Teachings, this is a famous saying, Gnostic Teachings, means know thyself. So when we say the word gnosis or Gnostic, it means knowledge. It's just the Greek word for knowledge, but the connotation is knowledge through direct experience. Knowledge that you yourself have experienced. So it's different than theory, or it's different than ideas. If something happens, let's say like an idea like intuition, you just know. How do you know? You just know you know. And someone's going to tell you, actually you're wrong, you're blah, blah, blah. So you can't tell me I'm wrong. I know, I experienced it. This is what Gnostic is. This is what knowledge, this is the type of knowledge we're dealing with. I chose this picture also because not just because of the beautiful setting, but the 4 pillars here. There are essentially what we say 4 pillars of Gnosis that we study, and that's we study art, science, we study religion / mysticism, and religion and mysticism. So these are the branches of philosophy study. So art, science, religion, mysticism, philosophy. And through those broad strokes, they used to all be one thing, we'll say. Back in let's pretend there was this ancient golden age. Science, mysticism, philosophy, art, everything was one thing, and now science is at odds with religion, and philosophy at odds with science, and all of these kinds of things, because of the growing influence of our self-directed intellect. But we won't get into all of it. Another thing I want to tell you is that the Gnostic system is very vast. We study many topics. This one's going to be very concise in a very specific section of the teachings. But if you have other questions at the end, my hope is this will take about 45 minutes, 40 minutes, with time for questions and perhaps a meditation if people want to stay for a meditation, no pressure. Okay? So the idea so far is, the premise that I just put out, is that people can know, individuals can know, and the thing that we're going to know is ourselves. And by knowing about ourselves, our true selves, the way we work, the way we think, the things that drive us, we will then know about others and the universe. There's an idea that if you keep looking outward, you never find, or this is like, I think, a Carl Jung quote. He who looks out dreams, he who looks within awakes. This is like the premise of Eastern Buddhism, where people who were, the West, this is what the Dalai Lama said at one point, the West was busy conquering outer space, Buddhism has been more concerned with inner space. And the idea that if we can know within, then we'll know without. So, of course, there'll be lots of religious and legendary references, but it's because it's essentially an anthropological spiritual group where we study religions, cultures, mythologies, and say, what are the common threads, or why are there so many common threads, and what does it mean now? And how can I apply it to myself? So this is Gnosis. This is the founder of the modern system. His name is Samael Aun-Weor. He was a Colombian man, lived from the 50s to the 70s. Gnosis is really big in South America. It's big in Mexico, in North America. It's slowly coming into North America. So for instance, how I mentioned all these centers, they came first from Mexico to Quebec, and now Quebec has like 23 French-speaking centers, and then from Quebec into Ontario, where we have essentially 2 English-speaking centers and maybe 5 to 10 Spanish-speaking centers. So we're a very multicultural group, very heavily Latin-based and Spanish-based. Just as an aside, I just came back from every 2 years we have what's called the World Congress, and we go to different places. And this one was in Manzanillo, in Mexico. And there were 900 people from all over the world that came together for 1 full week of meditation, lectures, dinner, the whole thing. It was really beautiful. It was my first time going to a World Congress and just seeing how big the group is. Now, one of the funny asides to that is they say, everybody from Canada stand up. So all the Latino people from Canada stand up. Everybody from Germany, all the Latino people from Germany. But we're starting to make a bigger move in reaching out to more English-speaking world. And that is essentially one of my biggest goals and one of my biggest mandates within the Gnostic movement is to bring it to our English-speaking. And I say, hey, no problem, it's the only language I speak. I'm perfect for that. So, here's a quote we're going to start with. It was the one that if you are attending this because you saw an advertisement on Facebook, this was one of the quotes that was on the Facebook advertisement. He says, those candidates who sincerely aspire to direct mystical experience must unquestionably begin with the discipline called dream yoga. So, just unpack that. What he's saying is, if we want to know directly and have direct spiritual experience, the best place to start is dream yoga. And that's what we're going to unpack today. There's a lot more in the system of Gnosis, of course, but this is a perfect place to start. So dreams. We'll start with dreams. There's so much we could say, but it's interesting when you talk to people about their dreams, because a lot of people have had experiences where their dreams are meaningful, where their dreams have been profound, where their dreams have helped or guided them in some way, and people love talking about their dreams. This is something I found. I've been doing this in this role as a director of London for just over 5 years now, and people love talking about their dreams. Because we go past did you see the Leafs game last night? What's that weather like? You know? How about, tell me about your soul? Let's start talking about our dreams. We're dying for these conversations, but it seems almost like there's this little barrier first. I don't know if it's nicety or we're a little private, but dreams are meaningful, and they've been meaningful forever, we'll say. Forever. This term, dream yoga, was even essentially coined by the Buddhists, the Tibetan Buddhists, as far back as Buddhism goes. You can see it. It's important if you ever have come across the Gnostic Gospels, which are these old Gospels. They talk about it in there. Everywhere, the indigenous cultures are talking about the importance of dreams. All the way up to, we think now they're not important, but then what are the psychologists looking at? Your dreams. So everybody, and there's a wide spectrum of from Freud to Jung to Adler to all these guys and saying what the dreams mean, but people are interested in the dreams because there's one idea we can't shake, and that's dreams have meaning. Probably, I'm not trying to convince you, right, that you guys came here because you're interested in dreams. So, one thing that we'll say, and I'm trying to, if it's a little vague or anything, ask me questions at any point. Because one thing I'm really trying to avoid is just hammer you guys with all kinds of information, right? So one idea that we look at in Gnosis is this idea of where are we when we're dreaming? What is actually going on when we're dreaming? There's two different questions. One is where are we, and one is what's happening, and who is the we we're talking about. So these are all the things that need to become unpacked. If dreams have meaning, here's another question. Who sent them? Why are they loaded with meaning? Who's trying to communicate with us? There's all of these questions, and we'll look at them. But before we can really unpack it, we have to say, what is my relationship with dreams? What is my relationship with dreams? Mine has changed over time. So one thing you may notice or may not is I'm just a very normal guy. Just a regular guy. And what I mean by that is, before Gnosis, I didn't have spiritual aspirations or really didn't think any way here or there about spirituality or dreams or lucid dreaming or astral projection. Just kind of liked living my life. And then I came across the teachings through slowly coming to a process of always thinking, like many people, where did I come from? Where am I going? What happens when I die? Why is this whole thing here? So that kind of bugged me for a little while, and then through different steps, I ended up coming to one of these lectures. And from there, I went to the course, and from there, they told me, hey, do this, this, and this will probably happen. So, okay, I'll give it a whirl. Maybe I'll prove it wrong. Did this and this, oh my gosh, it worked. And that's why I'm just saying that because if it worked for me, then I know it worked for you. There's absolutely nothing special about it. But the dream life has been one of the most beneficial places of work that I got out of Gnosis for my own personal development. And this is also what we use the dream work for. Actually, everything in Gnosis is essentially directed in. Because a lot of times we're looking to help others, but we can't really help others if we're in the dark also. This is one of the ideas. We're quick to tell people how they should live their lives, but not so quick to get our own house in order. And Gnosis really starts there first. So we're going to look first at the dreams, and I'm going to give you an outline of what we're going to talk about today. And it's all meant to be very practical, so you guys can start working with your dreams. One of the questions that we'll start with then is why? Why work with my dreams? What would be the point of it? What can I do with my dreams? because something that's, underlying the text that we were looking at is, it's not easy. It's going to take work. It's going to take time and perseverance. So why put in the time? What can I do? What can come of it? Well, like all things in Gnosis, you can know yourself more. You can have a direct spiritual experience, and I call it spiritual because it's the only way to really describe it, with, we'll say, spiritual beings or parts of your own consciousness that you feel you're not connected with yet, that can guide you specifically on your own path. 10 people can come to me and say, what should I do? You're a spiritual guy, what should I do? And I would have to say to each one of them, I don't know, I'm not you. I don't know, I'm not you. You know. You have to do that work. Kind of I find this is a big difference, I would say, between a spirituality system and maybe a religion or an ideology, say. Is that, not that I'm trying to disparage any but is that if you have maybe something more akin to a traditional religion, then the answers are given externally, and you believe in a certain person, and because of your belief in this person or deity or entity, then you're essentially, we'll say, saved. Okay. In the Gnostic idea, it is all of these religions, all of these things happen for a reason, because they're trying to send a message, a universal message, but that message involves you becoming the savior of your own life story. You have to do it. Nobody's going to do the work. This is dead. Okay, I don't want to ramble on. So this is why we're working with our dreams first of all, to know ourselves more deeply. You can wake up in a dream, in an objective place, and you can say, what do I need to do? What do I personally need to do next with my life? Where do I need to go? What is it that I need to work on? And that's direct. That's for you. That's very helpful. Until we get to that point, we stay in the general. What do we all sort of need to do and what helps us? And it's the wide brush kind of generalities. Yeah, come on. Sorry. No, we'll be sorry about it. It's all good. Okay, this is a painting of Nyx, the Greek goddess of night, of the night. So part of it, I said, is anthropological, so we're going to look at it through the lens of some Greek mythology first. She was one of the elder goddesses of the Greek pantheon. There was Nyx, the goddess of the night, and I forget his name right now, but it translates to chaos. Just like in the Old Testament, in the beginning there was dark and void. Same thing. So, she is night, the personification of night. This is sort of this classical Renaissance painting. I got some more paintings to show you guys. And she has children, like they all do in Greek, Yeah. Kind of another funny aside, but in my professional life, I'm a grade school teacher in a private school. And we study a lot of the mythologies. And when we got to Greek mythology, it was hilarious because they were so grossed out about all the brothers and sisters. There was nobody else left. They're always marrying their sisters and stuff. So it's just a little aside. But what we're looking at, and this is going to come back to our dreams too, through a Gnostic lens, is we stay as far away from the literal interpretation as we can. Yeah. Thinking that the literal is not the intention. There might be a literal meaning or literal purpose to the stories, but the deeper, more significant will be the internal spiritual, psychological interpretation first. So first we have night. We'll see how this all strings together. Then there's Nyx, and Nyx is there with, I love this one too. We usually use this one as our flyer for the astral projection. Yeah. But that's her son, Hypnos. You know that word, Hypnos, to be hypnotized. Hypnos is the god of sleep. So mother night, and from night comes sleep. Yeah. So we can see how they're building it together. I think one mistake we would make, or people can make, is look at mythology and think of it as a simplistic or maybe savage way of ancient cultures trying to understand seasons and things that happen. It's too reductionistic to think that. They're making personifications of cognitive or archetypal experiences that every individual goes through. So night is linked with sleep. Hypnos. We use this word today. Hypnos. There's Hypnos sleeping. Hypnos has a half-brother. The half-brother is Thanatos. You guys recognize that name? Thanatos, anybody know like Marvel movie?
Oh, that's
Thanos, yeah. Thanos is this big destructor guy. Well, in ancient Greek mythology, Thanatos was the god of death.
Oh.
So we have also a son of night and a half-brother of sleep, or Hypnos. We'll come back to that later. Here's Morpheus. Morpheus is the son of Hypnos, and Morpheus is the god of dreams. So Morpheus, in this painting, is called In the Arms of Morpheus, which for a long time used to be like a colloquialism for saying, you know, where's your brother? Oh, he's in the arms of Morpheus. He's having a nap. He's sleeping. This is what it means. Now, of course, more recently, maybe this name rings a bell from The Matrix, yeah? Because his name was Morpheus, but the one thing that people may know or not know is it's a very interesting movie, but it's based on Gnosis. It's so overtly based on Gnosis that one of the spaceships they fly around is called the Gnosis. Right? And then you have Trinity and all these things that we could discuss. But it's not a movie review, right? It's a dream workshop. So here's Morpheus. Morpheus brings dreams. We get night. Night brings sleep. Sleep brings dreams. Now, of course, he also has children, and I can never pronounce the name. Oneiride. Oneiride? You guys figure it out, okay? But what they are, these people, or these entities, these beings, they live in the underworld with the rest of Morpheus and all of them, but they leave each night either through the gate of horns or the gate of ivory. This was the ancient Greece. Now we might think ivory's nice and horns are bad, but the ones that come through the gate of the horns, they're the dreams that have meaning. The dreams that are sent by the gods, the dreams that are messages from on high. Even Morpheus is seen sort of as the Mercury character, the messenger of the gods.
Premonition?
Yeah, essentially premonition or divine dreams. The ones that come through the gate of ivory, they're the meaningless dreams. They're the dreams that have absolutely no meaning. These are all things we're going to keep in mind as we go forward.
The dreams where you're at work.
Yeah, right. And then you wake up and you're at work. The reason why they're the gate of horns and the gate of ivory is really less symbolic and more in the ancient Greek language. The word for horn is close to the word for truth, and the word for ivory is close to the word for deceit. It's more of that, but not that there is no test. We said there wasn't a joke. There's no test. This is all just to fill in.
It'll be a pop quiz.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Pop quiz, pick C, you'll be fine. So we've seen the way that this is linked together. Night, sleep, dreams, meaningful, meaningless. And they have a huge pantheon. If you read the Greek mythologies through the lens of internal, spiritual, psychological meaning, then we can apply it meaningfully into our life.
Yep.
If we read it like, well, they literally believe that in the underworld there were these daemons that came out and gave us good dreams or bad dreams, yeah, it sounds kind of far-fetched.
Yeah.
But this is why I'm saying we're staying away from the literal interpretation. Okay, cool intro, bro. Let's get to the meat of the substance. Here it is. So Samael Alavor again, he says, dream yoga is extraordinary, wonderful, terrific, but it is also usually very demanding. What we're going to look at is how we can start to become actual dream warriors, people awake in dreams, find a useful way to use our dreams, and how we can steer our attention away from useless dreams and be more receptive to useful dreams, and how to actually increase the useful dreams and decrease the useless. Like lucid dreaming to an extent. We did have a quick talk about that, just saying this goes beyond lucid dreaming. In our terminology. In the Gnostic terminology, you have to think of it this way, just to give a quick analogy. You have a virtual reality helmet on. A virtual reality helmet on, and you're seeing a bunch of scenes from your life go by. That's essentially regular dreaming. First of all, then you wake up and you don't forget anything that happened. Lucid dreaming would be like, now you have the virtual reality helmet on, and you're choosing your own adventure. You're deciding, I'm going to fly here, I'm going to do this. The problem is, you still have the virtual reality helmet on. Dream yoga is realizing that this is the dreamscape and taking the helmet off and seeing
Oh,
where
yeah,
you
I
are.
do that all the time.
Okay, great. We can talk about that after if you like. For
Yeah.
sure. So this is where we're going with that. But like anything worthwhile, and some people I've talked to already, and some people say that they do this all the time already. No problem. Hopefully you can find something useful out of this.
Mhm.
This is really, although we'll go as deep as you want with your questions, geared towards people who maybe started like me. Remember my dreams sometimes, don't remember them most of the times. They seem like they don't mean anything unless I read too deeply into them. So this is where I started. This is where I started. And then through work, we built up and built up and built up and have a deeper relationship with the dream life. And then we'll see what the connection with our dream life and our waking life really is and the similarities between it. But it's like anything. It's like anything. Imagine if you wanted to be an Olympic weightlifter. And then someone said, okay, come to this lecture today, and when you leave here, you'll be an Olympic weightlifter. You know, think, come on, it's not that easy. You gotta work on it, right?
Yeah.
This is Gnosis. This is Gnosis. It will give you all the keys, then you go and work, and we'll start step by step. We'll make the steps easy, accessible, achievable, and you can go test it for yourself. Test the veracity of what I'm saying. It does not require blind faith at all. This is the Gnostic path. Path of experience. Through knowledge through experience. Here we are. So, it's demanding. Well, let's start unpacking it. And like I said, if you have a question of any point, just raise your hand and or shout it out, whatever you want. Depends on how polite you want to be. And we can address it right away. And at the end, we'll have time for questions. I know a lot of times I've done this a lot with different lectures, but then it's like, you get all this information, and they're like, I don't even know where to start with the questions. So don't feel like you have to ask them, but you can always take. We have flyers. I'll give you flyers if you have questions later. They come after your dreams. Okay, this is where we're going to go today. We're going to start with dream yoga begins here with dream recall. If you cannot remember your dreams, you cannot interpret your dreams. If you can't remember your dreams, you can't wake up in your dreams. If you can't wake up in your dreams, there's no point. This is where we start. Number 1, dream recall. Number 2 we're going to look at is called dream awareness. We have to start becoming aware that we're dreaming. Sounds pretty easy, right? You guys out there have had some crazy dreams, I think. Some wild ones. But in the time, you probably didn't think, wow, this is a weird dream. Sometimes maybe you did. But you could be having that whole this is a common analogy we always use. You're having a conversation with Abraham Lincoln and a pink elephant and a skeleton, and you're just enraptured with what's going on. And you're thinking, that's a really good point, elephant. Yeah, I agree, Abraham Lincoln. Thanks for that, skeleton. And then you wake up in the morning like, wow, how did I not know that was a dream? I was not aware at all that that was a dream. I was just living it like it was a lived experience. So that's step 2. Step 3 is going to be how to actually wake up. Wake up in a dream. But the practicality of this is until you've say mastered or progressed in step 1, you don't have to worry about step 2. That comes after. Until you've worked proficiently with step 2, you don't even have to worry about step 3. That comes after step 2. It's very systematic. And one thing we have, and we'll talk about this later in definitely much more depth if you guys come to the course, is something called the ego, which is in Gnosis not such a positive thing, but the ego is the thing that says, okay, there's 3 steps, guess what? I'm on step 3 already. Why even bother with the first 2? I'm on step 3. Let's just wait and see. Work with it. Okay. You guys ready to get into this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's do it. You guys asked for it. So step 1, dream recall. This is where we're going to start. It's not so easy. And sometimes we can pride ourselves on how much of our dreams we can remember. And sometimes we say, I just don't remember dreams. It's just the kind of person I am. Well, we can always improve in all areas. And this is one area we can improve. And we have to start here. Maybe we remember dreams. I know I remember dreams from years ago, decades ago. Those ones that stick with me. We probably all have those types of dreams.
Good idea, thank you.
But from a night to night, on the nightly basis, all we'll do with this is we'll just keep an eye out in case someone knocks. On a nightly basis, we probably forget more dreams than we remember. So what can we do to increase our ability for dream recall? First one, this is where Gnosis starts in every aspect. It starts with lifestyle. And it starts with our own personal responsibilities, and especially our responsibility to ourselves. And what I mean by that is If we're running ragged and getting 4 hours of sleep a night, yeah, probably dreams are not going to be that easy to remember. If we have a lifestyle, and this is, of course, I'm not judging what I'm saying, and because before, I was drinking lots of coffee, staying up late partying, getting 3-4 hours of sleep, just blackness, wake up, it's great, down to work.
Yeah.
But of course I wasn't remembering my dreams. Of course. How could I? How could I? So the first step is to start to think about this as integrating another aspect of your life. A part of your life that's as important as this part right here. The waking state, say. That, okay, they have an opportunity to do something every single night. We need sleep. We know we need sleep. I don't have to tell you about all the research, but if you go with sleep deprivation, it's worse than being high or drunk when you're driving. This is where the research comes in. And we can hallucinate all kinds of things, but the body needs to rest.
Yeah.
One thing that's interesting is the consciousness does not. And this is where dreams come in. But we have to, first of all, have enough time to rest our bodies. So, and there's other little things we can do. These are like down to very minute details. Take a brisk walk before bed. Get out there in the air. Stretch.
Have a bubble bath.
Bubble bath. Sure. All of these kinds of, make it as agreeable to circumstances as you possibly can. If we say, well, I just can't remember my dreams because I've never been able to, but it's like, well, what steps have I taken? We wouldn't say, oh, I just, made your construction worker. Oh, I just can't use a hammer, I'm just not able to. It's okay, well, let's start figuring out how to do that because it's going to be part of your job, right?
Yeah.
So you can. Let's start figuring out how can we remember the dreams. First of all, we need to get more sleep. This one seems very banal, I know.
Yeah.
Oh, come on, we'll already get deeper than this. We will. But if you're not getting enough sleep, if you're not treating your body right, like for instance, this is another little detail. You could stay away from stimulants before you go to bed, or heavy meals before you go to bed. Anything that helps. Here's another one. Have a clean room. Go to sleep in a clean room. Fresh sheets, well ventilated. Yes?
They say clean room, clean mind.
Sure. And of course that could be the way because the state in which we live is a reflection of the state in which we think, of course. But if this is one of the easiest steps. I'm starting with the easiest steps first. You see? So get enough sleep. Second, clean your room. Okay? Sleep in a nice, comfortable place. Maybe you like lavender, put some on your pillow, something like this. Fresh sheets. Now we'll get into something a little more, say, esoteric. You could have your headboard facing north. This could help, because now we'll start to, without going too deep, take advantage of the electromagnetic field of the earth, which is going south. We can explore that one a little bit more deeply. But we can stay very clear first. Nice clean room. We had a nice dinner, okay? Wasn't light. There wasn't lots of coffee, lots of red wine. Low on stimulants, had a nice dinner. Went for a nice walk. The room is clean. A little stretch. Now we're ready for bed. Okay. Here's something we can do that's more along the spiritual lines. In Gnosis, we have tons of what we call mantras. Mantras are powerful combinations of vowels or words that we can use to help focus our mind for specific purposes. This one's called Egipto. Egipto. Anybody speak Spanish here?
It's what?
Spanish? You know what Egipto means?
No, that's not the word I ever heard.
It's Egypt.
I was going to say it sounds like Egypt.
Yeah, Egypt. But this is how we pronounce it, and it comes from the sort of the Spanish way of pronunciation. A, so EH is like the Canadian A. Is that A? Is it way? The I is like the I in ski, which is an E, right? Ski. And then toe as in like rope, so it's A. This is the mantra. And this is a very special mantra in Gnosis, but particularly for the beginning stages of dream yoga. Essentially, like in a nutshell, you can feel free to ask me more questions about it after, we'll call it a dream body. It's not what we call it in Gnosis. But this will strengthen the body of dreams, the consciousness of our dreams specifically. Because we're not going to go so deep right now into esoteric bodies and chakras and all of these things, but of course we study them. But this one's, you don't even have to believe it. Say, okay, I'm going to say this word for an hour a day, or maybe 15 minutes, half an hour, but an hour is good. Here's just a little personal experience without going into depth about like what I discovered, but just practical practice experience. I started with this mantra, ahipto. My instructor said, do ahipto for an hour and then see if you can have success with the dream thing. So I did ahipto every day. Came home for lunch, ate a sandwich really quickly, it probably isn't the best idea, and then 50 minutes ahipto, back to work, no problem. And then after about a month or 2 months of that, I started having very vivid dreams and started realizing I was dreaming. And then I thought, oh, I got this now, no problem. Look at me go. No need to do that anymore. So I just went on my way, loving the dreams I'm having, watching them slowly get more and more vague, more and more dark until the experiences went away. I'm like, what happened? I thought I had this mastered. Oh no, it was work in, experience out. That's what I learned. I was doing the mantra, and it was helping like it was supposed to, but then of course my ego got in the way, and I said, okay, I got this, what's next? No, I don't need to do this mantra anymore. But I always suggest this one because even in the writings, the whole purpose of this mantra is to bring consciousness to your dream life. So, step one, we started really on a real surface level or normal, and now we just got really weird. See what I use this into? So, step one is first healthy lifestyle. Step two, clean bedroom, nice place to sleep. Step three, meditation. And we're not going to go anywhere in Gnosis, in any direction, through any one of the teachings in Gnosis without meditation. It's the core. It is the core of pretty much any spiritual system. This one is not complicated. All you have to do, really, is do the mantra, and you can do it in these 3 syllables. And you can just focus your attention on that, and your mind will wander. Then you bring it back, and your mind wanders. Then you bring it back, and then just try it. Just try it. It's essentially like saying, if I say to you, okay, you want to start to become that Olympic weightlifter? Go home and do 100 push-ups every night. You'd be like, I don't know if that's going to work. I'm not going to try it. Well, it's going to be something in the right direction. It is going to work. You have to do the push-ups with the work. Yeah.
So you do it just before going to sleep or at any time of the day?
You can do it any time of the day that works for you. I picked this picture specifically also because in Gnosis there's no necessity of being in like asanas with the legs crossed or anything, just sitting naturally. If you want to be in an asana, do it, but any time asana, like a posture like a Sanskrit posture, any time of the day is fine. Meditation before bed is a great idea, for sure, because it's going to help us get ready for bed. But the one thing I don't want to have happen for you in your life is say, well, I work the night shift and I come and go to bed. Guess I can't do Gnosis. Because our brain already is going to try to find all the loopholes it can. Yeah, do it before bed. If you can't do it before bed, do it some other time. Do it. This is the whole idea with Gnosis. Try it. If you don't want to try it, don't try it. If you don't want to try it and say Gnosis doesn't work, then I'd say, I don't know, did you really, does it not work or did you not do it? That's what I'm asking. But your life, I don't have a vested interest in, well, I shouldn't say that. This comes off too harsh. But your spiritual path, your decision. That's what I'm saying. So this is a great one to do, ahipto. Every day. Try it. And then, once you start feeling comfortable, there's another thing you can do. Yes?
How long should you repeat the mantra for?
Well, the suggestion is an hour a day.
Okay.
Okay? You notice how I said the suggestion and not the mandatory?
Yeah.
And especially if we're starting with meditation, we have to make it achievable. We have to set ourselves up for success. So if I have never meditated and I say, okay, that was a pretty good lecture, I'm going to go home and meditate for an hour a day every single day, it might not work for us. And then the problem is if it doesn't work for us, instead of just getting up the next day and trying to meditate, we say, I can't do it. I can't do it, and then we don't try it. We don't want
It's like any learned skill, you have to keep doing it.
Of course. Perseverance. That's what we're talking about. Now, in the morning, here's something we can do in the morning. By in the morning, I mean like, boom, right in the morning. We're in bed. We wake up. Don't move. Stay as still as you can. The problem is, this is all for dream recall, that a lot of times what happens is the alarm goes off, oh God, I'm late, well I gotta do this, what do I have to do today? All of a sudden, the list starts running through our head, and anything that happened or any dream we experience like an etch-a-sketch, gone, vanished, because the list started running. So this one you can do, it's no problem. All you have to do is try to consciously not really move your body at all, and hang on like gold to that last remembrance of the dream that you just had. Maybe you were in some park or at a beach, this is your dream. Then you wake up, you stay still, and you remember, hold on to the dream. This is another mantra called Raum Gaum. This is a very traditional Tibetan Buddhist mantra that comes from the Tibetan Buddhist dream yoga practice or lineage or teaching. And also very simple to do. Well, when I started Gnosis, because I'm not of Spanish descent, I had to practice, so it's forever trying to roll up the rin to win. That's how it works. But the R's are generally like that. So for this mantra, it would just be and this mantra is like to the dreamer what dynamite is to the miner. This mantra will help us remember what has happened in the dream. You don't even have to say it out loud. Maybe you have a spouse or a partner or somebody sleeping next to you and they don't have to wake up. You don't want to be round gown in their ear. So internally, you can be holding on to, I remember I was at the beach. And you don't have to try to think hard. Okay, what happened before? What happened? Because a lot of times all we're doing is thinking ourselves out of the memory. We're just overthinking it. You just hold it in your mind and internally round down. Just let it come back a little bit. Let it come back. I've had success with this mantra when it was taught to me, where I was even one time in the shower. I got up everything in the shower and I'm like, okay, wait, I had a dream last night. Oh, it started coming back. I don't know if that's not the most common experience, because usually if I wake up and I don't do this little retrospective Ram Gam practice, then a lot of times the dream is gone. And I say I don't remember my dreams, but in reality, I could, I just didn't do the practice in the morning. It just takes some work. We're all here because we're interested in this stuff, so we're not looking for the easy out, like the one mantra that makes all your dreams come flooding back in one instant. But we know if we can slowly start implementing this stuff, we'll start to remember our dreams. And now we'll come, if I've got it right in my mind, the order I put these slides in, the most important part of step one. Yes, the dream journal. The most important step one is a dream journal. So what we've done here is we've given ourselves the best possible surroundings, internally and externally, as in no stimulants, didn't have a heavy meal, I went for a nice little walk, my room is clean. That's a nice surroundings. We've internally strengthened our dream body, or our consciousness towards dreams, by doing ahipto. When I get up in the morning, I'm doing a round gown to remember that little bit of the dream and see how far back I can remember, and then write it down. Every single day, without fail, write down your dream. Oh, I have a question. What if you don't remember your dreams? Write down, no recall. Don't skip it. Write it down. This is going to become the most important thing that you do, and this is step one. Until we start remembering our dreams, and how are we going to tell? Oh, we have them written down. Until we can really start remembering our dreams more consistently, you don't have to remember every single day, but more consistently, why would we go to step two? It's not, it's sort of like, it's like skipping a step in anything. Okay, I didn't finish high school, but I think I'm ready for university. So hold on now, you might want to be prepared for what you get yourself into. So this part can't be understated. You can't overstate this enough. What I'm saying is you have to have the dream journal. And just a couple little tips I would suggest, and I always suggest because I've gone through this and made all these mistakes. My first dream journal was one of these, leather-bound, sort of ancient India-esque, fancy paper journal. And I was like, okay, because dreams are important, obviously. But then I remember I'll have a dream where I look horrible, or I'm doing something atrocious, or I'm doing something ridiculous, or I'm the bad guy, right? We have these dreams. I don't want to write that in there. I don't want to write that in there. I don't want to admit that I was the bad guy, or I murdered somebody, or whatever. Like, you don't have to take responsibility for your dreams yet. They're just happening. It's kind of like our thoughts. Thoughts just bubble up. You can act on them or not, but we're not really sure where they come from yet. But dreams are like that too. And if I don't want to write the dream where I did something horrible or I was made to look a fool or something, then all of a sudden I'm skipping dreams. I'm only waiting for the big important ones, and I go back and I say, oh yeah, I wrote 3 dreams in a year. You know? Come on. We're not going to go anywhere with that. So my solution to that is just buy a regular notebook. Something you're not invested to that isn't like, I remember I drew this beautiful cover on this and I wrote like in calligraphy towards the deepening of the work. You know, I took it so seriously. I was going to just unlock the secrets of the universe in 3 dreams. But reality, just a regular notebook. Something you don't mind. And even what I do on my bedside table is I have my dream journal, but beside it a little notepad. Because sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night. You just want to scratch something down. And then you fall back to sleep. And then in the morning, on the retrospection, you can put everything in the dream journal. But these are little practical things because we can tend to take ourselves very seriously, especially early on into the work. And then we start seeing ourselves and we're like, okay, yeah, there's a goofball here, or there's this part of me that exists that I keep trying to hide from myself because, yeah, I make mistakes. This is a big part of the Gnostic work. Okay, so that's step 1. Any questions so far about step 1 before we just go on to step 2? Yeah.
Do you know what the effects of cannabis on golden dreams?
Similarly as what the effects of cannabis would be on the waking state, it's essentially like a hallucinogenic, or not so much like mushrooms or acid or anything, but it does impair the cognitive state. So, I'm not saying negative or positive, but the dreams we have maybe under the dreams we have under the influence of narcotics are, the validity can be questioned, can come into question more than a direct spiritual experience, is what we would suggest. And even if you think about it as a polarity, you can have meditation on one end and intoxication on the other end. So I've never been more enlightened when I was drunk. It didn't make me a more enlightened person, or, you know, essentially parts of myself that I thought I had conquered, like anger or something, it just flares up when I'm on this end of the polarity. So, my suggestion with that, not being your father or anything, is to, part of the getting ready for sleep, if you want to gear towards dream yoga, is sobriety. But then, you know, your friends come over later, you guys want, hey, maybe this is not the night for dream yoga. Yes.
When you're journaling, is it helpful to provide a context to the dream? Like if there's something in your day that sort of resurfaced to the dream, you know, to write a broader context, or just to isolate the dream itself?
Yes, I understand completely. The best thing when writing the dream, so the question I think you all heard, but should you provide context or say a narrative about it, is to stay away from that. Is the best. To just write what happened exactly as it happened, and as soon as you wake up. I'll tell you why, this has happened to me many times too. I've had a dream, I remember it when I wake up, I'm going to write it down later. And all of a sudden, when I'm writing it down later, I'm getting out of my own head, I'm changing things. Oh yeah, but actually it turned out I received the golden sword of destiny. Oh yeah, that's what it was. It wasn't just some random, you know, pair of dice or something. So what happens is we start to color the dreams with our own wishes and desires. But as soon as we wake up, we just write down what happened. There's going to be time for exactly what you just asked. Will be coming up. But the first step is what happened exactly and as objectively as possible. In Gnosis, we have this idea of, and we'll get there a little bit closer to the end, splitting our consciousness. Observer, observed. Try not to get wrapped into what happened, and try to be like you're watching a movie disinterestedly. Here was the dream exactly as it happened. And if you can do it in the more objective state, then you have a better chance of mining the actual truth out of that experience, as opposed to superimposing our own desires onto it. Yes?
Can I just record it?
Pardon me?
Can I just like record it? Can I talk it?
Sure. Yeah. Some people I know do that and they have success with it. Yes?
So, just what you're talking about now about seeing things as they are reminds me of Buddhist thought.
Yeah.
So,
Buddhist thought. Reminds me of Buddhist thought.
I think. But is there any correlation between Buddhist practice and the dream yoga, or is it
Yeah.
mostly
Yeah,
based
absolutely.
in Hinduism?
in Hinduism? No. No, the whole idea in Gnosis and what we look at is that there's correlations between literally all religions and methodologies. And Buddhism in particular is one that's heavily studied because essentially there's an idea that you can get closer to an objective truth by mingling esoteric Christianity with esoteric Buddhism, as opposed to saying something like literal. When you get literal, the religions are all separate. When you get deeper or spiritual, they're all the same. And like I mentioned earlier, dream yoga, even that term, comes from the Buddhist practice. They have essentially this practice is a little more modern version of it, but in the Buddhist teachings since the beginning of Buddhism. So yeah, and objective observation is a big part of not only, I mean, we can see it in Buddhism, of course. Have you guys ever heard of the Philokalia? This is an ancient book based on the Eastern Orthodox Church of the early church fathers, but they viewed Christianity the same way that Buddhism. So they have this other word called nipsis, which meant watchfulness, and the same exact things, only wrapped in a whole different culture. So all these cultures have these similar things, and we look at that in depth, particularly in more of our advanced classes. First, we lay down some groundwork and ideas and what you can work with, and then we see how has this been explained throughout the world throughout all time. Like, have you heard of this one of like the 5 blind monks explaining what the elephant is? One monk touches the trunk, says, "Oh, it's like a snake." And one touches the tusk, says, "Oh, it's sharp." And one touches the foot and says, "It's like a tree trunk." And one touches the tail and says, "Oh, it's furry." And then they fight over what it is. It's all the elephant, but they're just from their perspectives, they're seeing different parts of it. This is more of the idea of what, say, religions or mythologies or legends are doing from the Gnostic lens. Okay, so now we're going to go on. So let's say we're writing our dream journal, and it's going pretty well. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm writing the journal, and boom, I'm starting to remember my dreams. This is the big part. Some people here always remember their dreams. Some people here never remember the dreams. It's easy to tell where you are because now you're either remembering your dreams more often or you're not. If you're not, Aegypto, keep doing these round down, keep writing everything you can, even if it's no recall. Something about falling into the forest, I don't know, just random, even randomness, it's better than nothing. Now we move on to dream awareness. So now we're starting to dream. Here's one of the ideas. Is we've been dreaming the whole time. We've just not been bringing it to our memory, or we have not been conscious of it. We're starting to remember our dreams now, so it feels like we're dreaming more. And now we have to start to become aware of the dreams. So we start with our dream journal. This is why it's indispensable. Every single month, we're reading through the dream journal. Read through your dream journal first so you can see the progress you've made. When you're doing something like this, like dream yoga, can be almost a little bit like watching your hair grow. It's growing, but if you watch it, boring, right? But if you take a month at a time, these bigger snapshots, you see, oh wait, I have been making progress. One of the biggest problems, I don't know why this happens exactly, but it happens and it happens to most of the people I know. Even if you get to a step of where you're having, say, conscious dream experiences, this thing we're going to call astral projection, or waking up in a dream, it can become mundane. It can become like, oh yeah, I woke up in a dream again, kind of thing, on with my life. But somehow there's something in us that something is exciting first, we have a big drive towards it, then we accomplish it, it's like, it's not a big deal. But if we're keeping track, we can see how we're progressing. And if we're progressing from no dream recall over the month to remembering even 20% of our dreams, that's a huge improvement. Because imagine if we weren't doing this, we just go no recall, the projection is no recall forever. So we're looking at it, we're looking to see how far we've come, we're coming a long way. It's hard to see it sometimes. The other thing we can start to do is get into dream interpretation. Just like the question was asked, but now we have it written objectively in our books, and now we can start to be like, what does it mean? What do these dreams mean? With the memory that, the idea that some of these dreams are coming through the gate of horn, some are coming through the gate of ivory. We can try to mine a lot of meaning out of a meaningless dream, but maybe it's not so useful. But the biggest thing, and we'll talk about this more in depth in the course, but the biggest thing is the one that interprets your dreams should be you. Should be you. And there's an example, like let's say for example, I'm growing up, and when I'm growing up I go to visit my grandparents out in the country on a farm. Okay? And then someone else is growing up, and they go out to the farm and they hate it, they have a horrible experience. And then all of a sudden, someone comes and says to me, I dreamt I was on a farm. I say, oh, that's good. It's a really good omen, because farms are good. And then they go to the other person and say, I dreamt I was on a farm. Oh no, this is bad, this is ominous, this is danger. It's like the association is with the individual. This is why it's important for you to interpret your own dreams. Now, we have some ideas we can work with. The idea of correspondences and analogies, meaning don't interpret it literally. Oh, you're going to get in trouble if you do that. If it's like someone comes and gives you a gift at your front door, they give you a present, and then you stay home from work because you're waiting for someone to come give you a present. It's not really how the dream world works. It's not really how dreams work. Symbolism. Think symbolism. Things can be related to other things. Things can be correlated to other things. But literal is extremely rare. If you have like a literal dream of what's going to happen in the future, it's essentially a premonition. It's something that's much more beyond dreaming. And I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm saying that the majority of our dreams aren't that. So, yeah.
So if you have a dream where you're contacting people, would that be considered something that you shouldn't look at literal too? Or would that be kind of like a different category?
Well, I would always start from the lens of not literal, with the possibility that literal could exist. Because what I'm saying also in this is that the dreamscape, the dream world, is a literal objective place that we can go to. So to say that we never have that experience, I don't want to put that on the table. But it's easier to be a little bit self-skeptical first, because then we're a little bit less likely to accuse people of doing things we saw them do in the dream world because we had a dream of, oh, that person stole, that person must be bad.
But not like people, but like other beings.
Sure. Well, it all depends. Yeah. The way we work with this really, interpretation is through, now I know we already talked about meditating in the morning, staying in bed. Now we're going to get up and meditate on the dream. This is the next step. And it's through meditation and Gnosis that we look for the answers. So, wouldn't it be like analytically saying, okay, I saw this people, now this could mean that, and that could mean that. Because what I'm using there is my intellect, which is something a little more related to, like we talked about the ego a little bit, and more like I'm just going to meditate. What does it mean? Hold the question, leave the space, get the answers. But I know it seems like I'm dodging the question because I don't want to rule out that it's an objective experience that you're having. I would just always go hand in hand. Could be objective, could be subjective. Let's meditate on it. Let's see what comes true, what holds true. Because there are the dreams that come through the gate of horn. We can receive messages, have very objective experiences with parts of ourselves, with other entities. This is one of the main purposes of doing this, so we can increase that. So it's very possible, but it's not, in general, it's not the most probable that every dream is that. A lot of the times the dreams are repetitions of what we do all day. So I kind of went ahead to it, but now we have the clean bedroom, we have the healthy lifestyle, we're meditating ahypto for like an hour a day. When we're waking up, we're staying still and we're doing rounds down in our mind to bring the dream back. We're writing the dream down. You see how it's building on itself, you realize there's a lot of work. We're writing the dream down, we're reviewing the dream journal, and now in the morning after we write the dream down, we're going to meditate on the dream. It doesn't have to be in the morning, you have it written down, so if you have some time in the evening, you can now meditate on this dream. I had a dream that I was with this person, with that person, this was the message. For us in Gnosis, meditation is getting to direct intuition and knowledge, receiving it directly. You don't do that by thinking and thinking and thinking about it. So we're saying meditating, we're not mulling it over and being like, okay, well maybe the rabbit represents my anger. I don't know. And maybe the elephant represents no. We're not really doing that. We're asking, we're leaving the space. So now we're going to start meditating in the mornings on the dreams. and the answers will start to come. And there's one other extremely, extremely important step with the dream journal, why it's the most important. So we're reviewing our dream journal every month, but now we're looking for recurring themes, recurring places, recurring scenarios, things that seem to be happening over and over again. For an example, we did this as a workshop, for a month-long workshop. Once many people came, we did this same basic thing, but as a workshop, slowly building up on it. And over that period of time, I kept dreaming about being in an airplane. It wasn't so out of the ordinary because I used to work in the aviation industry. But I had a dream I was in an airplane, and I was at the back of an airplane, and another night I was flying in an airplane. But I kept note of all of this. What does it mean? Well, essentially, it didn't mean anything. It didn't mean anything, but it became what we call the initiator element. It didn't mean anything. Maybe it had meaning, but the meaning could be a little contrived. But because I kept track of how often I was dreaming about being in an airplane, which was like 6 times in 2 months, which was a lot for me to dream about airplanes. The next time I was in an airplane, I said, wait a minute, this is a dream. That's the initiator element. The initiator element is a repeating scenario, a repeating person, a repeating experience or place. It can be anything, but you're not going to find it. If I wasn't keeping track of my dreams, I guarantee you, I would have no idea how many times I dreamt about airplanes, and I would not have realized that the next time I dreamt about an airplane, I was actually dreaming. So the meaning of the airplane, maybe it could have lots of meanings, but the utility of dreaming about the airplane is I now knew I was dreaming, which is a huge step in Gnosis. This is where the next step comes in. If we find this initiator element, it's going to be different for all of us, but you're not going to find it if you don't keep track of your dreams. Then you're right at the doorstep of opening the door to awakening in your own dream, to the reality of that dream world, of that place. You know, there's a whole other process that comes down from different teachings. It's the astral projection, where you consciously project your astral body out of your physical body and have this experience. It's not so practical. And by that I mean it's not so accessible. This is the easy sort of back door into waking up in your dreams. Now, 2 things could have happened when I realized I was on the airplane. I could have, in the dream, been like, oh, I'm in an airplane. This is a dream. That means I can fly, and then I go fly around. Or that means I can go see the pyramids of Egypt. That means this or that or that. And what I'm doing there essentially is lucid dreaming. I'm now controlling the subjective reality that I'm experiencing. But notice the word subjective. But what happened instead was the doorway in to an objective experience by saying, wait, this is a dream. I'm in the dream place. We have other words for it. Clear your mind. Watch the image fade. It's like taking off the virtual reality helmet. And then where you are is as real as where you are now. See, I am somewhere. I am somewhere. And you get all these kinds of sort of questions come up. Maybe they wouldn't with you guys, but what if I get stuck there? The hardest part is staying aware of where you are, because it's so easy again to put that virtual reality helmet back on, fall back into a dream. And it's easy to wake back up in your physical body too, in the bed. It's so easy because you get excited, or you get scared, and all of a sudden you're, shoot, what happened? But the initiator element is the key to awakening in dreams. And so once you get the initiator element, now we're ready for step 3. Before that, keep working. Keep working. It's worth it. Find your initiator element. Don't worry about trying to get there so fast. It's not going to work if we try like that example I've been using. If I was like, hey, I just want to be an Olympic weightlifter. What are they lifting? Yeah, 500 pounds? All right, I'm just going to lift 500 pounds. All I'm going to do is hurt myself. You're not going to hurt yourself with this, but you're also not going to lift the weights. So if we just think, I just want to wake up in my dreams. Okay, that's good. That's what we're going to do. Let's work towards it. Now you have your initiator element. Maybe you've been working on dream yoga for 2 weeks. Maybe you've been working for like 3 or 4 months, but you get there. Maybe it's taken a year, but you get there. This is the point. We could for the rest of our lives be like, that was cool but weird. I'm not even going to try. and then we just never get there. What do you got to lose? God willing, right? That time's going to go by anyways. 2 months, 3 months, 2 years, 20 years. Let's put it to use. Try it. Just try it. Now, we have, say in our dream journal, we found our initiator element. Let's say it's a pink bunny. Or like, let's say it's a white bunny. Then we have like this Alice in Wonderland kind of matrix connection. It's the white rabbit. Now every time that you've noted it down, you've been writing it, and you keep seeing the white rabbit. Now you have the initiator element. There's 2 things you can do with this, but they both lead to awakening in the dream. The first thing you can do is become aware. Okay, my mind is set towards the white rabbit. I see a white rabbit. That means I'm dreaming. I can walk through walls. Oh no, but white rabbits also exist in the room. Okay. But you have to try to see, where am I? Am I dreaming or am I not dreaming? This is a question in Gnosis we start to ask ourselves daily, and almost situation by situation. Seems weird, right? Like, am I dreaming now? I know I'm not, right? How do you know? How? Did you check? Are you sure? Have you ever been in a room with these people before? Studying this up here? Maybe I'm dreaming. Well, let's check. There's a couple of things we can do. Oh, no, the wall's pretty solid. Okay. Got the watch. Okay. Check it again. Oh, still the same time. No. No? That doesn't work. Or this is the big one in Gnosis. People only doing it. Just look around. Okay. Physical world. I checked. I'm not floating. I'm not stretching. I'm not going through walls. The time is staying the same. All of these things. It seems almost ridiculous to do. But because so many of our dreams are repetitions of what we do all day, now I'm even in the dream, but I'm still just like, say, totally asleep, like a zombie in the dream. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just living my little life. There's the pink elephant, there's the skeleton, there's the bunny. And I'm like, wait, my hand went through the wall. Because I've been doing that all day. I just do it in a dream, like, wait, this is a dream. So these reality checks can become like initiator elements too. Questions?
Well, I do that with counting my fingers.
Sure.
Because when you're dreaming, you don't count
Yeah.
fingers, you like 20
Yeah.
mils.
I don't recommend that you go and get tattoos, but it's been helpful for me. I don't remember that one. I don't remember that one. But these things all help. But with the initiator element, you can now, when you see the white rabbit, say if we're stick with that one, every time we see it, we ask, is this a dream? Is this a dream? And that's the first step. The second step is you can now go to bed picturing your initiator element. Let's say your initiator element, we'll stick with this white rabbit, not to confuse, is there's a white rabbit hopping around. So as you're falling asleep, you just hold this image in your mind with all the willpower you can. And then as you're falling asleep, you feel yourself there. And then all of a sudden, there's a white rabbit hopping around you. Now you're in a dream, but you just created that dream scene. And you created the dream scene, that's your initiator element. This is like the best chance to wake up in the dream. You're just going to sleep thinking of the white rabbit. Now you're seeing the white rabbit and you say, wait a minute, there's the white rabbit. I'm in a dream. This is the first step to awaken. There's sort of like 2 steps to this. It's realizing you're in a dream. You can do that by the initiator element. Another thing you can do using an initiator element, not the initiator element, is let's say you wake up in the middle of the night and you were just having a dream. It's very vivid. You're just walking through the sands of Egypt. Now go back to sleep, picturing yourself exactly where that dream left off. But now with the knowledge that as soon as you're in the sands of Egypt, you're dreaming. It's not an objective reality. You're not really in the sands of Egypt, but you're now in the dream world and you can say, okay, I'm dreaming. And then once you have that realization, this is why meditation helps us. Because meditation stills the mind. When you still the mind, you stop projecting onto the screen of reality and you just start observing. So it's like, let it go. Where am I really? Oh, I'm in my bedroom. But I'm in this objective place, this sort of, we'll call it a parallel dimension. The astral plane, the dream world of your bedroom. This is where we are. So many times we receive so much help in this, but we brush it off. I had so many dreams where somebody will ring the doorbell, and I go down, open the door, and no one's there. Oh, this is my dream. And ring the doorbell, nobody's there. I never questioned it. Is this a dream? One of the most blatant ones I remember, because I write them down, is once someone rang my doorbell, and this is a total dream. I'm not awakened, I'm not anything spiritual, I'm just blah, 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 living through a random dream. Someone knocks on the door, open the door, and there's a woman. I have this dog in my hand, and the woman says, "Is that your dog?" I say, "Yeah, that's my dog. That's why I have him. What's your dog's name?" "I don't know." "You don't know what your dog's name is?" "No, I don't know my dog. Why are you bothering me?" Slam the door. Wake up like, oh my, could you have a bigger wake-up call than that? It should have been like, why do I know the dog's name? This is a dream. This is a dream. That's why I don't know. But the whole time leading up to even that dream, I had not really been doing awareness practices or asking myself, am I dreaming or not? And it's just really related to, like I said, work in, experience out, like everything else. Now comes the, oh yes, question.
I just have a quick question.
Sure, of course.
Something that I learned from my grandmother when I was a little girl that I taught my son too is that she always said if you're having a bad dream, blank, and if you can actually blank in your dream, for like blink your real eyes, then you can change your dream.
Okay.
So I don't know if that would be my dream initiator, but I find often if I'm dreaming, I'll blink.
Yeah.
And I'll realize that I'm dreaming, and I can change my dream, or that's my gateway into
Sure.
lucid dreaming.
Perfect.
But I've only experienced a little bit of the actual projection, but I don't know if that would be mine or
Sure, it sounds like it.
separate.
Sounds like it because your blank is because already you realize you're dreaming and you want to change it. So you're in a dream, bad or pleasant or otherwise, and there's a lot of bad dreams. It's very awesome. We all have this. And then you can blink, and then you're in another dream. For you, that could be your initiate. Oh wait, this is a dream. If it was my waking life, then I would blink and oh no, still same situation. Shoot, can't blink that one away. But that becomes now your initiator element. And then so what happens is now we go to this next step. In this step, we recreated the initiator element, or we saw it, we realized, or we blinked, and now we realize we're dreaming. That's the first half. The next half is separate ourselves from the dream. This half is easier than this half. So, but it progresses this way. A lot of times we think, oh dang, that was a dream. Knew it. And then we get up and all frustrated. How did I not know? I'm the worst ever. I could have woken up and experienced Gnosis. No, we're progressing. You are progressing. Before that, we just didn't even question if it was a dream. We just accepted it. So now, we're realizing it's a dream, but to be in the dream and out of the dream, this is the big step. We have to be able to leave the scenario of the dream. And we can only do that through the quieting of the mind. Because it's the mind already that's projecting that dream. Projecting it. So for instance, let's say we're all in the dream dimension. I'm using words I think will be more accessible to us and not the actual words we use in Gnosis. We're all in the dream dimension. Objectively. We're all here together. But if we're dreaming and not awakened in our dreams, it would be like sort of, we're all just having these little conversations or scenarios in our minds, not interacting with one another, kind of like zombie apocalypse stuff. Except that there's nobody's eating brains. But just that we're just, and then somebody wakes up and goes, wait, where am I? I see all these people, and they're lost in their own little imagination or mind. Even if they realize they're in a dream now, and they start directing the dream, it'd be like someone who was randomly having a dream, and now all of a sudden they're like, oh wait, I'm flying, like this. But from the objective experience, you see, okay, so close, so close. But as soon as that virtual reality helmet comes off, you say, where am I? Here I am. Gnosis, we have all kinds of things you do from there, from that point, that are more geared towards your spiritual development and less geared towards dreamscape traveler. You don't want to be an astral tourist. I mean, you can, it's fun. Check it out, it's cool. But at the end of the day, you're like, okay, I woke up in my dream, and I could fly, and I could float, and I could stretch, and I went to Egypt, and I saw the Eiffel Tower. Okay, what did we learn? Nothing. Okay. So it's not a wasted opportunity, it's progression, but no, there's more we can do. There's more we can do. And so, if we can start to become more proficient in either dreaming about the initiator element or going back to sleep, remembering the dream, then sooner or later that is going to lead us towards waking up in that dream. Okay. What you have to do is not become attached to the dream. There's the bunny, I love the bunny, it's such a great bunny. It's like, no, there's the bunny, this is a dream. Let it melt away. And now, the trick is to try to be as grounded in your senses as you can, which seems kind of strange. Seems kind of strange, like this whole mindfulness awareness. But the second we start getting into fantasy, we're back in the dream realm. We're already in the realm, and we had put the virtual reality element back on as a way of thinking. We fell into our own fantasy. But if we can stay objective and observant, deepening, you can even do this. Bring all your senses here. Bring all your senses here. Observe. And we're really in a good position to have some great experience. And from that position, that's where the spiritual experience comes from. We can interact with spiritual beings, positive beings, other ones, parts of our own consciousness. We can get direct knowledge about ourselves, for us, about what we have to do at our particular point on this path of spiritual development. This is the direct mystical experience. It's mystical because who thought, oh, I can do this? I mean, probably many of us can, but most people think, oh, I can't have a direct experience. We just found the back door in. It's as good as being a master meditator and projecting your astral body out at will. It accomplishes the exact same thing. It accomplishes the same thing. It's not so easy, it takes some work, but we can do it. And then from that point, now you have a leg up on your own individual spiritual journey. And that's where we want to get people. That's where it would be nice for people to be able to be. Now this whole path, like we just said, this dream yoga path, it progresses, but it's not so linear. You know what I mean? You're going to be working hard, forgetting dreams, remembering a dream, wake up in a dream, back to forgetting dreams, back to writing them down, back to wake up in a dream. But the whole thing over time is going to be like this. It's just not going to feel like this. Right? It's not going to feel like that. It's something to know. Okay, do you remember these two people? From the beginning? Hypnosis one. The other one? Anatos. This is why the Greeks portrayed them as half-brothers, sleep and death. Because in this Gnostic teachings, the place we go when we sleep is the place we are at death. It's the place we are before birth. There's a huge importance. And what dream yoga really can be ultimately is a practice for that change of state that we call death. This is why the Tibetan monks use it. This is why it's in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. This is, at its ultimate core, it's about knowing yourself and keeping the stream of consciousness through that gateway called death into that next gateway called the next life or the new life or whatever it is. But we see, from the Gnostic lens, we're taking it more seriously than we are, well, this would be a cool parlor trick. This is something we practice for the entirety of one's life because two things are guaranteed, right? We know that? Death and taxes. Right? The guarantees. So we know that's going to happen. And most religions are set up because of this underlying knowledge that there is something immortal within the human being, something that is not destroyed, something that continues on. That's the part that we're connecting with. Very, very simply, without getting into any religious talk, we can call it our consciousness. And how is life going to be for us once we, to quote Shakespeare, shuffle off this mortal coil? A nice way of saying it. Well, it's going to be similar to that of our dream life now. Do I remember most of my dreams? Am I aware? We can be in that state of consciousness also, where we're sort of like, say, like a log tossed by the seas of life. So, subject simply to the, we'll say, divine laws. We can get into all of those things later. Or we can be guiding the ship. Which way is it going? Continuing our own work. But in the Gnostic tradition, in the Buddhist tradition of the Bardos, this is the same realm. This place we call astral plane or parallel dimension. In Christianity it's called limbo. All of these words. This is the place that we go when we sleep. This is the place we go when we die. Got heavy, guys. So, here's the biggest problem. These are our last two slides. Here's the biggest problem we have with dreams and with our waking life. Here's the connection. When we're awake and when we're asleep, we're presented with something, we become identified with it. What is it? Maybe it's a lecture. Then, once we become identified with this lecture, we become fascinated by it, we start generating all kinds of thoughts about it, and then we dream. We forget that we're an individual sitting in a chair on our own life path. We got connected. Think of when we watch a movie, right? Think of like the greatest movie of all time. You all know what it is, right? Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. So you're watching Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and all of a sudden you think you're Indiana Jones, and his victories are your victories, and his defeats, and we're crying and we're cheering, and we forgot that, oh, I'm just some guy sitting on a couch in his living room on Sunday afternoon. This is this whole process. This happens every night. A thought comes up, a memory, an emotion comes up. We become fascinated by it, we relive the experience, and we fall asleep into fantasy. That's called identification, fascination, dream, or sleep. But it affects us right now. Right now we do it. Thought comes up, I think, oh man, I'm hungry, what am I going to have for dinner? Okay, well, you know what sounds good? Pizza. I do love me some pizza. All of a sudden, somebody's rambling up here, and we're off thinking about pizza. This is the exact same process. The best way to wake up in the dream world is to wake up in this world. The best way to wake up in this world is to battle these three things. These are the essentially like the weapons or the path of the unconscious. And we do it with what we call the key of soul, S-O-L. Subject, object, location. At any time, lost in a thought or a fantasy, I say, what's the subject? I am. You are. You say I. Not me. You say we're I. You are always the subject. You're a specific point of consciousness in space and time, and you are always the subject of your experience. But we forget that. You see a whole mob, they're going to go protest something, maybe it's Occupy Wall Street, maybe, I don't know, something like that. And you just get swept up. Yeah, well, we are the 99%, we will know money, or whatever it is, and we just fall asleep to that. Because we forgot, I'm the subject. I'm the subject. What's the object? It's what we're looking at. It's what's in front of us. A lecture, a flower, Indiana Jones in the Last Crusade. But it is an object. It is there. I am here. I am observing it. I am not Indiana Jones. I am not the flower. I am not the mob. And then location, where am I? Be here, be now. This is kind of cliche when I say this thing. But for us, and in the context, say, of dream yoga, where am I? Look around. I'm in the physical world. I'm in the physical world. I'm in the waking state. But we do this throughout the day. We bring consciousness and awareness to our waking life. We repeat it at night. Bring consciousness and awareness to your dream state. So subject, object, location is something you can practice all day long, along with some of those mantras that we gave you, the dream journal. But it's going to go so much further than just having cool dream experiences. This is how we live our lives. This is how we live after our life is through. And it's a lot deeper, but we can't get to all of it right now, of course. Okay, there's our talk. Like I said, there's a new course coming up. If you want to sign up for it, all you have to do is give me your email, put you on the mailing list. The course is going to either be a Monday night or a Wednesday night. You guys can put your preference and we'll see, tally it up and see what the majority is. The reason why it's only Monday and Wednesday is because we already run classes on other nights. You can come up and see me. Also, I'll be here because a lot of people, we're going to have questions in a moment. Randomly can ask any question. Some people don't want to ask their question right now. They want to ask it later. So I'll be mulling about taking down people signing up and answering questions. So the course is like this, except for this lecture was a bit longer than this, is generally a 45 minutes to an hour talk, half an hour meditation, give you something to do for the week, come back, talk about how it went. Building.
Based on dream yoga?
Dream yoga is a part of it, but the very first introductory course is more based on what we call spiritual psychology, how the mind works. This idea of subject, object, location, and fascination. Why is it that we fall asleep? What is it within us that's working against our spiritual development or even our health? You know, there's something inside of us that isn't working for our benefit. If it was, we'd all be healthy and happy. But something is causing us not to be. So we're going to look for that and find it and find ways to eliminate that. That's essentially the first step. And then the second step, we go deeper and we study lots of things, astrology, Kabbalah, ancient cultures, the whole thing. But it's really just to elaborate the Gnostic path, which is essentially 3 factors of the awakening of consciousness. Death of the ego, birth of what's called the solar bodies, the conscious bodies, and sacrifice for humanity. Sacrifice is in charity, not as in, but as in working for others. That's the 3 factors for the awakening of the consciousness, and we elaborate that throughout the course. So, that being said, any questions about the Dream Yoga presentation? You have just so politely sat through. Yes.
I don't know if this is obvious, but I don't know, like, what am I looking for when I'm connecting to my consciousness? Is it just what you said? Like, they say I get to this place and I can lucid dream or do whatever I want. Am I looking for something in particular, or?
Yep, in from the Gnostic lens, and we can deepen it when we have a little more knowledge, but in specific, you're saying this is the astral plane, this is the dream world. What do I need to see? What do I need to work on? This sort of thing, spiritually. What do I need in my life right now? You're asking someone, but we didn't really cover who that someone is. Spoiler alert, it's a higher part of your own consciousness. You can't interact with it. This is what we're trying to connect with. Because that part of us that knows what we need is blocked in the waking state by that part of us that wants another slice of pizza. Or whatever it is, or wants to go do all these things that there's a part of us in the waking world that just is driven by repeating experiences. We just want to experience. You guys are too hungry to think about pizza, right? but there's a part of us that it's harder from this state to connect with that higher part of ourselves than it is when we're in the astral plane. That's what we're connected. Yeah.
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. You mentioned at the end that, the last stage is basically sacrifice for humanity, right?
Yeah.
So I very much see this astral projection and the dream state and everything kind of like a metaphor towards our real life, right? Because we go through a system that conditions us in many different ways. So basically, it's kind of like a dream world, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's stimulus response. We do what we're told. We have these expectations. We go on our life as just kind of like players that we're doing it, but we're not really doing it because it's not our mental awareness that's doing it. It's just a whole bunch of conditioned responses.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So in a way, if you learn to wake up in your own dream and say, listen, I have power, I can do this, I can decide what I want to do, then you can transfer that stuff to your real life and basically wake up in the real world and realize you have power to change things. And that's kind of part of the sacrifice for humanity, where you basically decide to put in your own piece and what you would like to change.
Yeah, exactly right. And those 2 pieces are interchangeable.
Yeah.
The waking up here and the waking up there are interchangeable. And the other thing we look at in Gnosis is like how society conditions us. What is society? It's a whole group of individuals. What are we? Individuals. How do we change society? Change yourself. That's the whole Gandhi idea. Be the change you want to see. Yeah. Anything else? Anybody? Yeah.
Just almost kind of, I have a similar thought in mind. Just a comment, like, I think it's a good way to approach it is just understanding this is like, we're students of the cosmos, and every nighttime the teacher, the dream, the higher consciousness is there to kind of like give us a lesson. And so like we have to be able to show up as a good student, to be able to like take notes, pay attention, and then when we do that, this would be the answer as to why are we doing this? It would be to graduate, to evolve, to move like beyond just being in grade 2 for the rest of our life, theoretically. Does that kind of make sense? Does that resonate?
Absolutely. Without going too deep, we have an idea in Gnosis of something called evolution, and then something called involution. And in Buddhism, they call it the wheel of samsara.
Yeah.
So, revolution, to get off that wheel, is something that has to be done by the individual for himself. The graduation, as you say. If we stick to nature and what the cosmos has planned, then we can just say it's continually coming up and coming down, but never going up, never going higher. So there's nothing in nature. This is the difference between Gnosis and other systems. Some of the systems say we're all evolving towards a mass spiritual awakening. Gnosis says, no, it's not going to happen. Every individual has to do it for themselves. We go through periods where more people have done it, but it has to be done for yourself. Nature won't do it. It's not nature's job. Good. Yes.
Going back to the practice of journaling, so for the dream journal, you want to focus in on the dream itself. But as you're progressing through becoming more aware and awakened, you start having more experiences. Would it be wise to track that as well in a separate way? So you're not convoluting your dream journal with your other spiritual growth?
It's a great question. I keep it all in one journal myself. Whether it's a random dream that I have to remember, or I woke up in a dream and had a conversation with another entity or something, it's all there with the date.
And it's within the dream, I guess, so you're still just
Yeah,
framing the dream
exactly.
experience.
And the dream journal itself is showing also a progression. So we start with not remembering dreams, then remembering dreams, and then waking up in dreams, and then having spiritual experiences. So, but really, your journal's going to go up and down between experience and non-experience. I would keep it all together. But it's not a bad idea if you feel personally drawn to this was meaningful. I have the leather bound, whatever you want to sign before. It's fine. It's absolutely fine. Yes.
These spiritual experiences are only being able to be realized in dreams or at any time.
At any time. For us, the dreams is an easier way in, and a more advanced way is to be seeing these spiritual planes around us already. Someone would call it clairvoyant or something. But it's possible, but it's a different word. Not so different, but we'll say more steps to that process.
Yeah, of course.
This is the
Higher religion.
yeah. To be awakened means that you see everything. Right now we're just limited by our physical senses. But let's say there's a spiritual entity here now, and if I was clairvoyant, I could perceive it. That, of course, is higher than something like dream yoga, but you have to start somewhere. Dream yoga is the perfect spot to start. Good question. Okay. Well, thank you for coming, everybody. I'll be here if you want to come sign up and ask questions more privately. I'll be here. Thank you. I don't know if I mentioned this also. The course starts the week of the 21st. So either October 21st or 23rd.
Where is it?
It's at the London Gnostic Center, which is a renovated apartment attached to my house. So if you're interested, you put your email down and then I send you the address.
And
How
what-
many weeks is it?
Well, the introductory course is about 24 lectures.
Okay. Is there a cost?
There is no cost. Like I said, it's a non-profit. We suggest people donate $30 a month to pay for the space. Some people can, some people can't, some people do, some people don't. You don't have to. It's not a prerequisite.
What end of the city are you on?
It's Sarnia and Wonderland area.
If you can't make it every night, is that an issue? Like I'd only be available every other week.
That's not an issue. Because what I do is, like with the courses, I do a little lecture like this, but then I would send the PDF version, so you can catch up and come to the next one with all your questions. It's not. Yeah, sure. Okay. Name and email is best. Email is better than a phone number. That way we can put you on the mailing list and put it out. But a phone number is fine. Maybe we can turn the lights on and off. Now we can feel like we're free to go if we want to go.
You weren't born.
No, I feel like you're probably your ass will reject it. That's it. Seeing it from the other.
That was a really wonderful talk.
I like it and hope it's useful.